My fellow countrymen of Southern Cameroons, welcome to another interesting segment. In this video, we are going to analyze the recent passing of the divisional officer for Kumbo Central. It is said he died in his residence in Kumbo under unclear circumstances. We are also going to look into nation building, history, law, and the discipline to change our mind and build a country that we all can be proud of. So we are going to diagnose several aspects of our history. Again, 70% of the problem is with us, 20% is with La République du Cameroun, and 10% is with the international community that includes the UN. If there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. Charity starts at home. So it's very, very important that you underscore that as we dive into this conversation. Let's go ahead and watch that video briefly, and then we'll go ahead and make further analysis. Buckle your seatbelt, grab a cup of coffee, and let's enjoy this ride. Do me a favor, click that subscribe button. That is your vote of confidence that I don't just want to stay on the sideline. I want to be actively involved in bringing about change in Southern Cameroons. We are also going to look at what we have in common as Southern Cameroonians and what is different about us, Southern Cameroonians, the three different types of Southern Cameroonians. Let's go ahead and listen to that video, and then we will make further analysis. So this is the situation we are dealing with. You can see that is his residence right there. That is his picture on the screen. The locals found him dead. Everything that we are going through right now in the Southern Cameroons can be attributed to the crisis on the ground. But that is certainly not true, and there are other aspects we have to factor into consideration in challenging times like this. What I want you to do is zoom out, look at the full picture of Southern Cameroons, the totality of Southern Cameroons, the inhabitants, factor all of that into consideration. What I am about to say will shock you because people think everything is politics. And this is one critical pillar of nation building that most undermine. Every unforeseen circumstances on the ground is attributed to this current crisis. And that is not entirely true. The life expectancy of the average Southern Cameroonian is between 58 to 61 years. That means the average Southern Cameroonian will not live longer than 61 years. The average American has a life expectancy of 78 years. That means the average American will live 18 years longer than the average Southern Cameroonian. And you should factor this into consideration. As we are thinking of building our nation, we should understand that these health challenges are affecting our people. What ravages our people predominantly, number one, is malaria. This hits children under 5 and pregnant women the hardest. Malaria has been ravaging Southern Cameroons for hundreds of years. So as we are thinking of nation building, we should factor this into consideration. How can we, and with the information we have at our disposal, we can eradicate malaria in Southern Cameroons so our people can be strong, work hard, and build the country we all want to see. Number two, respiratory infections. So this is very deadly for children and the elderly. An elder like this can pass on. What most will assume instantly is this is Nyongo or Amba, not factoring in that maybe he lost his life as a result of respiratory infections. So as we are building Southern Cameroons, let's factor this into consideration. Health issues that our people have been dealing with for a very long time. Number 3 is maternal and neonatal causes. Death during childbirth, newborn death within first month, lack of skilled birth attendants. This ravages the lives of Southern Cameroonians. Number 4, HIV and AIDS and tuberculosis. These are all diseases that have been proven to historically take the lives of our people. Number 5, cardiovascular diseases and stroke. So high blood pressure that is untreated has taken the lives of our people a lot. I know of many wealthy men that I grew up respecting that all of a sudden passed away because of these diseases. Number 6, violence and conflict related death. So if you look at the list, death as a result of the conflict back home comes at number 6. Malaria, respiratory infections, maternal and neonatal causes, HIV and AIDS and tuberculosis, cardiovascular diseases, and then violence and conflict related deaths. You see the order? I'm sure many don't factor this in when we are talking about nation building. So you should understand why an elder like this may pass away all of a sudden. There are those who said, you used to talk about Tikar. You said the Tikar people were different from those from the Southwest. Now you're talking about Southern Cameroons. Isn't that contradicting? Let me clarify that so that everyone who has been watching me on this journey, because if you miss one class here, you skip one class, come back here after 3 months, and you don't understand this journey, my brother, reserve your comment. Or you watch all the other videos that you haven't watched. You don't go pick one video that you watched 3 months ago, and then you come watch a video today to claim that you are on this journey with us. You're not. Everyone on this platform is on a journey, and they've seen the progress. Ambazonia never truly told our story. So I don't blame anyone that has not been in full support of Ambazonia right up to this moment. But what I have presented before us, every Southern Cameroonian should be involved. And I'll make a distinction between the different types of Southern Cameroonians and what we all have in common, because that is important. If we factor in what we all have in common as Southern Cameroonians, the 3 different types of Southern Cameroonians, and the differences we have with each other, we will be able to make progress easily. Because what confuses you in this life the most is not the difference between right or wrong. It's the difference between right and good. Because right looks like good, but it's not. If you see black and white, you can distinguish easily. But if you have blue, black, and black, it is easy for you to confuse the two. So my goal is to make sure that I help you understand the difference between black and blue black. Does that make sense? So let's start with the whole Tikar initiative. Nation building It's not noise. It's not shouting. It's not slogans. And it's not who can insult the other side louder. That is not nation building. That is why you see I use frameworks. I talk about institutions. I talk about legal clarity. These are foundational to nation building. You've not heard any of your leaders for the past 9 to 10 years speak with this precision. Nation building is sacrifice, clarity, discipline, and truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. For years now, you've seen me on this platform. We've run organizations back home that have mentored young people that have gone on to start businesses, and they are making millions of francs in those businesses. Those initiatives came out of my personal pocket, not some NGO money, not crowdfunding. Sacrifice that I believe in our people. Some said, oh, you should charge the members of that organization. When we were running Nation Builders University, charge them for registration. I said, no, we won't charge anyone a dime. Nation building, sacrifice, discipline. So for years now, some have called me a hypocrite. I read a comment. Yeah, some called me a hypocrite in the comment section because I was talking about Tikar, and then now I'm talking about Southern Cameroons, and I want to clarify that so that they don't run around and confuse other people about what I'm doing here. So I get to explain for myself what I'm doing, so you don't hear from someone else. They say I contradicted myself. They say I said people from Southwest were not our brothers. And now I speak about Southern Cameroon. That accusation only works if you refuse to think carefully. Refuse to use your brain. That is the only way that accusation will sound reasonable to you. So I want to explain everything clearly, calmly, and once. I won't come back to this. Every time they get confused in the future, you play this video for them to watch. That's why I produce contents like this on the regular. Again, 70% of the problem is with us. 20% is with La République du Cameroon, and only 10% is with the international community and the UN. Underscore that and never forget that. So every time you see me bringing up issues that have to do with our community on a regular, it's because I understand what I'm doing here. Like I said, if one of your parents come from La République du Cameroon, you should not be allowed to lead any department of this movement. When we are done, we'll play democracy. Why? Because our history has shown us that betrayal always comes from within. Even Foncha is said to be a man from Chang. And there are many among us that have betrayed us. And we are realizing they are not authentically 100% us. So anyone that will lead any department of this revolution, when you are our brother, we are not denying you. We are not saying you won't have equal opportunity even to become the president of Southern Cameroons. But this liberation phase, if one of your parents come from La République du Cameroon, you should not be allowed to lead. Somehow, you will instinctively betray without knowing. So we want to save you that embarrassment. or save you from those labels that you carry on for the rest of your life because of poor decisions that you will make because you are not 100% a Southern Cameroonian. So when I speak about Tikar and the idea of reviving a Tikar-based civilization or the UKT vision, I was speaking at the level of civilizational identity. And that was accurate. It is fact. When Issa Churuma Bakari wanted to become president, you say, oh, don't play with the Northeast. Why were you saying that? Why didn't you just talk about Cameroon? Why were you talking about Northeast specifically? Because you know that we are different. I said Cameroon is made up of 4 distinct groups. The so-called Cameroon. The highlands, the coastal people, the forest people, and the Northeast. I said that. When Maurice Kamto wanted to become president, you say, oh, don't play with the Bamenda people. Why did you say that? Why didn't you just say Cameroon? So were you a hypocrite? This is a fact. This is our history. You use those words without understanding what you're saying. And now what I did was went back thousands of years, studied our history, and brought about clarity as to why you say those things. That this is who we were, and this is how colonial masters stitch us together to create a country or create nations or create colonies. So that you understand how you came about becoming Southern Cameroon. Civilizations have boundaries. History has lineages. Ancestry is not an insult. It is a fact. Saying these people belong to this civilizational stream is not hatred. Like you can call the Bamenda people come no go. And that sounds crazy because if there is anyone that you should attribute such labels to, it should be those from the Francophone zone. Because legally, we are Southern Cameroonians. Civilizationally, Bamileke people are our brothers. And I will show you what this has done that you don't have a clue about. And that is why I say, I'm just letting God use me. And he has been using me and I can feel it. Because some of the challenges that exist between the Northwest and the Southwest that I'm able to solve or will be able to solve right now, you don't have a clue about in terms of leadership culture and how we perceive leadership. Just going through this journey. But you educate so that our people can have clarity as well. Every serious society does this. America that you see is made up of different states, but they came together legally and signed to be part of this United States. Texas sees the world differently from those from California. Ask your people living in this country, they will tell you. Their values, their belief systems are different, but they are all part of the United States of America. So saying we are all Southern Cameroonians will not erase my Tikar heritage. Education, you educate them. You just use words without even thinking until you call me a hypocrite. Are you serious? You've had an incompetent leader extend their administration into Southern Cameroons for more than 65 years and put your people in bondage. You don't call him a hypocrite. You've had leaders that have extorted money from our people, cost thousands to lose their lives. You don't call them a hypocrite. You can't call me a hypocrite over a historical fact that I put before you. So people in the United States of America do it openly. They don't hide it. So I should pretend that I'm not Tikar because I'm a Southern Cameroonian. This has united the people of the Northwest than you can ever think. That almost every tribe from the Northwest are descendants of Tikar. This has brought unity. And this should bring unity among the people of Southwest as well, to understand their heritage. And also help the Basa people to be careful. If you are betraying those from the Southwest, you are betraying your brothers. Bamileke people, if you are betraying those from the Northwest, you are betraying your brothers. And these are the closest individuals we have around us that have this Francophone heritage that links us to the rest of this country, Cameroon. This is what God is doing. Some are too slow to understand this. Texans talk about the Texas culture with pride. It's everywhere on their signboards. Don't mess with Texas. Lone Star State. You think because we are building Southern Cameroons, we will not be proud of our Tikar heritage? You think so? We won't study history to understand what has happened with us over time so that we can adjust our character and not betray one another and not sell one another as slaves or label one another without knowing what we are doing? Californians talk about California culture. They're proud of it. You can tell. When you see a Northwest man or a Tikar man, you can tell from their culture and how they carry themselves. Again, a country can have diverse groups of people. And we have seen that with most developed nations. Yet, these people are all Americans. No one calls that division. They call it maturity. So the confusion comes when people mix culture, law, and politics into one emotional mess. Just look at, have the color of the skin, say, hey, my brother. That's how we think. Because you're black like me, you're my brother. No. Some people can be black like me, but they are from Nigeria. They are from Senegal. They are from different parts of the world. They are not my brother. We are the only continent on earth that, because you have black skin, we are brothers. In Asia, it's not the same. Japan colonized most of Asia. Japan. They don't see Japanese people today as their brother, but they have grown past that. Korea was colonized by Japan. Did you know that? So when we mix everything into this one emotional mess, we get confused. So they are not the same thing. By ancestry and history, the Highlands people, including Bamenda and Bamileke, are brothers. That is not my opinion. That is historical record. By ancestry, the people of the Southwest share deep roots with the Basa of the coast. That is history. That is facts. So recognizing ancestry does not divide people. It explains behavior. It explains alliances. It explains betrayals. It explains leadership style. Like in the Northwest, like I said, we never grew up with a desire to become fun. It's not our culture to be fighting over power. Do you understand? So when you see me, you might feel threatened, like, oh, this person is the next king or the next president. We don't have that. And that is why you see most Cameroonians, by learn acceptance, unknowingly, they have the desire to become president of La République du Cameroon, which is a lofty dream that will never happen. But they have that desire somehow, because in a centralized state, who has authority? The president. So the only way you can get to be the authority is to get there. Some have become ministers of territorial administration, just to realize that even at that level, you still can't make certain changes in that country. So they think, oh, if I can climb up again, become a president, and you will never ever have any francophone allow you, that is not legally bind to them, become president of La République du Cameroon. Once you understand your legal status, not politics and administration, because that is what most Cameroonians, by learned acceptance, are using to find legitimacy in that country. Administration and politics, not legality. And then some say, oh, the exchange of notes was a union treaty. And then they turn around and say a union treaty was not required. Then they say Britain had sovereignty and Britain transferred that sovereignty to La République du Cameroon. So if Britain had sovereignty, of which it is even crazy to think about that, Britain had administering authority. So if there was no requirement for a union treaty, then why should you turn around and treat an exchange of notes as a union treaty if a union treaty was not required? So La République du Cameroon, when you send out these surrogates, some of them come from the Anglophone zone to come pitch us with ideas like this, they will put you into trouble. They should shut up their mouth because they don't know what they are talking about. So if you tell me an exchange of notes is the same as a union treaty and you try to shove that down our people's throat, what you are saying is an exchange of notes is a union treaty. That means a union treaty was required. And then we will look into that exchange of notes you claim can substitute for a union treaty if it is actually a union treaty. And if it's not, we look into what a union treaty constitutes. Are you understanding? So they will put their people into more mess. But what I want you to understand is these individuals have nothing to say. Pobia will talk with us. La République du Cameroon will discuss with us at the UN. So, and yes, of course, sometimes history reveals uncomfortable truths about us. But truth is not hatred. I don't hate those from the Southwest. I don't have hate in my heart. I'll never have hate in my heart for another human. I might distance myself from you. I might let you know that what you are doing, I'm not comfortable with, but I will not hate you. What Tikar did for me personally and for many in the Northwest was clarity. It helped people understand themselves. It helped our people to understand each other. Understanding Tikar can help me be a better Southern Cameroonian. It helped expose patterns we kept repeating without knowing why. Why we had 80 tribes in the Northwest. Why are we this divided? Because we had to broke into smaller groups to avoid slave rates. Understanding that we are all one regardless of what has happened in the past. That is very important for the people of Northwest, given the energy that they even have in the Southern Cameroons. Getting their act together is very important for the survival of Southern Cameroons. And you don't understand what God took me through that path to help solve. So this is not destruction, that is healing through understanding. I said conversations like this, if you are not mature, you avoid them. And that is Africa for us. They said they wanted independence. 3 years later, they can't handle independence. They came up with a new word called neo-colonialism. Oh, we thought the colonial master left, but they are still here. Blame, 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 no responsibility. Adopted socialism, communism, struggled with it, failed. Picked up authoritarianism, became dictators. Now you can't even speak in the same country where you were clamoring independence in. So, law is not my opinion. If this were purely a civilizational project, let me make this absolutely clear. I would have loved to see a full revival of a Tikar-based nation. But once the lawyers entered the process, when I started consulting with legal experts about what we are going through, one thing became unavoidable. What the world recognizes on paper is Southern Cameroons. Law is not emotion. Law is not preference. Law is documentation, recognition, and jurisdiction. Do you understand what that means? That's why I said Banjul, Bamenda High Court, Lagos, all these courts cannot decide on the future of Southern Cameroons. They can give you some motion of confidence, support you, but they don't have jurisdiction. And that is why going there has not solved our problem. So by law, the Northwest and the Southwest are one political entity. Teach them this. We may not like it. We may criticize how it happened, but denying legal reality does not make it disappear. History and law are not enemies. They operate on different levels. Strong nations understand both. The United States of America is not built on one ancestry. Give you a historical reference. Europeans, Africans, Asians, native people, these are the combinations of people that make the United States of America. So different bloodlines, one legal framework. Switzerland has Germans, French, Italians, and Romans in Switzerland. Different languages, different cultures, one nation. Singapore is Chinese, Malays, Indians. That is the group of people that make up Singapore. No shared ancestry, shared discipline and law. No serious nation demands shed blood. We will have some people come in and help us with institution that some of them will end up with the citizenship of Southern Cameroons that are not originally from that place, but they will make a significant contribution to help us shape the future of Southern Cameroonians. That is a country we are building. We start thinking like people that want to build a country. Do you understand? So when people say you must share ancestry with everyone to build a nation, they are not being African. They are being ahistorical. So let me say something difficult but necessary. It's good that you hear some hard things. People who cannot change their minds are not fit for this journey. If you cannot change your mind, if you are a stone, you cannot change your mind, you are not fit for this journey. A third world country, with what we are going through, you can't change your mind on something, you are not fit. You put our people's lives at risk. Nation building requires learning. Learning requires correction. Correction requires humility. God does not use people with fixed mindsets. That is why the Bible talks about a shepherd and a sheep, not a shepherd and a goat. Do you understand? Goats cannot build a country. People that can follow leadership, these are the people who go on to build first world countries. Sheep listens. Sheep adjust. Sheep follow direction. Goats resist everything. They don't move. They don't adapt. They scatter the flock. That is a goat. If new information threatens you, you are not ready to lead. If facts offend you, you are not ready to build. If clarity feels like betrayal, then confusion has become your comfort. So I will not retract my words. I know what this journey has done for me personally. I know what it has done for others. I know the cost I have personally paid to bring clarity without asking the public for money. So, you don't have to be like me. You don't have to agree with me. But if we are serious about building a future, we must stop confusing emotion with law, ancestry with citizenship, and noise with leadership. Nations are not built by people who refuse to think. They are built by people who are willing to learn, adjust, and tell the truth. That is the path forward. Now, I want us to dive into another aspect of this analysis. It's going to blow your mind. Stay glued to your screen. You hear what some Europeans are planning against Africa or for Africa. And if care is not taken, especially with what I'm sharing on this platform and others take it for granted, I want us to listen to a short clip and then we get into that. Some people were complaining about the European education. Let's listen to that because we'll factor all of that in.
This is the kind of education we have in Africa. Just imagine we wasted time doing this. See Cameroon students studying fishing in Norway. Just look at this is their Norway.
So many of these countries around the world.
That brother is complaining about us studying fishing in Norway. They have a problem with the education system we have in Cameroon. There's a saying that we should think globally but start acting locally. This is what I hear us saying. Let's think locally and act locally. But the saying said, think globally but act locally. Global thinking should inspire you to create a miracle locally. But let's listen to another clip and then we come back to that. It's very important so that you understand everything within this framework. Take a listen.
See Cameroon students studying fishing in Norway. Just look at this is their Norway.
So many of these countries around the world are incapable of governing themselves. Then it's time for us to just put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is at stake.
Exactly.
National security interests are at stake.
Some people in Europe are saying, if these countries are unable to govern themselves, we'll put back the imperial hat and come help govern those countries. There are some people that will not take instructions to a coach that is a black man or a Cameroonian. But if a white man is brought from Europe, they will take orders from that man, go out there, play different. But if a coach comes from among you, you disrespect them. And they might be saying the same thing, if not better, than that white coach. So what we are saying is, if our soccer teams can only do well when we have foreign coaches, that means even our countries will do better if we have foreign leaders. And yet we say we want autonomy, we want freedom. We should be very careful, very mindful of what we say, how we respond to information like what I put out on this platform. Now let's go back and look at that fishing in Norway. That brother said there was a problem with the idea of teaching us fishing in Norway. I don't understand the rationale. My people, while I was in Form 5, we used to learn about Antony and Cleopatra, Julius Caesar. I leave those classrooms, I go out there and I create a theater club and have our people practice what we heard in that classroom. School is designed for you to learn. Go out there in your environment. Try to be creative with what you have learned. Not just memorize for a job or cram for a job, cram for an exam. Other countries learn the same thing and do better in their environments. Singapore studied the same fishing in Norway and did something different about it. Koreans, the same thing. But when it comes to us, no, it's a waste of time. Teach us just about the little mesam that we have down the street or the little fish pond we have around. We don't want to think globally. But yet we want to travel globally. With desire, there are many, like 80% of Cameroonians right now, or Southern Cameroonians, if you ask them, you want to travel to America, they will say yes. But now you have an education system that can help you think at the level of those nations. I'm even sharing with some that we will build the first world country. They say, oh no, that idea is not visible. You desire to go to these countries. I say, let's build one here. You somehow came up with an idea of how it is impossible. And you're traveling to countries where people have 2 hands, 2 legs, did the same thing. Do you understand?
Education we have in Africa. Just imagine we wasted time doing this. See Cameroon students studying fishing in Norway. Just look at this is their Norway.
So many of these countries.
Let's start there. Now, tradition is not the same thing as science. Do you understand? Passion is not the same thing as governance. And resistance is not the same thing as nation building. If we don't separate these ideas, we will keep recycling pain while calling it struggle. Let's look at the fishing in Norway idea. Norwegians don't fish successfully because of culture alone. They understand the science of fishing. Do you understand? Then apply it to their environment. The principle is global. The method is local. What I hear some of our people saying is, the lock that you use to lock your door in Southern Cameroons, if you remove that lock, come to America and put that same lock on a door, that door will not be able to be locked. Because that lock is from Southern Cameroons. It's like gravity works differently in Southern Cameroons than it does in America. Let's separate science from tradition. This is very important. That's why some people say, no, the achu only tastes better when you put it on the leaf. Not understanding that there are some insects that even work on that leaf that you can contact diseases. As we've had plates and modernity, we should be able to upgrade. Some say, oh no, the achu only tastes better when you pound it with a mortar and a pestle. That's what some people believe. Honestly, ask around, they'll tell you that if I have a machine where I can grind the cocoyam and the bananas and I'm done with that within maybe 10-15 minutes, no, let's go through that method. That is why you see most people only cook achu on Sunday. They cannot enjoy achu in other days of the week. Why? Because of the time it takes. And with modernity, technology, let's use the same crude method. Do you understand? Now we are thinking about how we are going to feed our people, how we will use machine to cultivate crops. Some will say, no, the hoe is better than a tractor. And that kind of mindset will slow progress. Think globally, start acting locally. Gravity works the same everywhere around the world. A lock that secures a door in Southern Cameroons will secure a door in America. Science does not change because of geography. The law does not change because of emotion. Institutions do not work because of slogans. Thinking globally, acting locally. That is discipline, not betrayal. So some people blame Western education for Africa's failure. That argument, my people, collapses under facts. Why? The same education was studied, adapted, and applied by the Chinese people, and it worked for them. The same education was mastered and localized by Singaporeans. For 300 years, English has been the working language of global trade, science, engineering, and law. We have been in contact with Europeans for more than 553 years, since 1472, when the Portuguese arrived on the coast. After 5 centuries, if we still cannot maintain basic roads or speak clearly about governance, see, today people are still saying Britain was the sovereign authority, not the administering authority, even after 65 years. We are in 2025. People don't understand the role Britain played in Southern Cameroons prior to 1961. Education is not the problem. Application is the problem, our brother. Let me repeat that slowly. This makes us to be humble. If not, we only create monsters in our minds that we claim are after us. Singapore did not say, oh, the British are after us. Look for everything in the book that can make you be a victim. Those in South Korea did not say, oh, Japanese people are after us, so we can never succeed in life. They got over it. Today, France is after us. Britain is after us. The colonial master is after us. Everyone is after us. What kind of society are we building? What are we really leaving for our children? Raise them in fear and terror. They go around the world looking at themselves as victims, targets. Oh, they will kill you, they will kill you. Fear everywhere. Who is after you, my brother? Were you there? Did you hear these people planning? Can you give us a recording of what you heard that they were after you? At independence, many African states chose socialism or communism. When it failed, instead of reforming, they slid into authoritarianism, corruption, and then dictatorship. Now you're running. Some of your brothers are in their prisons, in their dungeons. We are running left and right from the same countries we wanted independence in. And then what happened? They came up with excuse. They blamed the West. Pragmatism was missing, my people. And that is what we will use to build Southern Cameroons. Some people believe natural resources is what will build a country. Skill. Whatever you have, if you don't have skill, talent, forget it. I'm not saying capitalism is perfect. I've made that abundantly clear. It is not. But successful nations chose what works. They adjust, they reform, and they keep results, not pride. We choose to keep pride and not results. We choose pride and not results. Successful nations choose results over pride, and they will let go what they have that is not working and adopt what works. China shut down for 183 years. Open up within 47 years, they're a first world country. China was closed. Africa still want to be one Africa, an elusive idea. They are still thinking of trying to go cage again before thinking of opening up. And there are some in our community that are Pan-Africanist. One Africa, Africa without border. And they are in here saying they are Southern Cameroonians, and they are trying to make sure that the Republic don't get into their area. Confusion. It's with us. I say 70% is inside. Confused thinking only creates a confused society. And your own thinking ages you more than anything that you can imagine. That is why your heart is filled with fear. Because you have internal confusion beginning with your thinking. Africa is the only continent seriously debating of becoming one country in this world. 7 continents, we are the only ones thinking like that. And we think it is okay. And we are fighting Cameroon over borders. You cannot reject borders in theory and demand them in law at the same time. That contradiction exposes unserious thinking. China, once isolated for over 183 years, after rejecting British goods, they told the British people, take your goods with you, your barbarians, we don't want that. The result was poverty, mass suffering. This is not a dispensation of isolation. Cooperation, interaction, association. Mass suffering, eventually reality forced reform. China opened up, cooperated, reconstructed, and disciplined its institutions. That is how China rose. Isolation did not save China. Africa for Africans, Africa for Africans. Pride, not results. I don't deal with illusion. I'm very pragmatic. So isolation did not save China. We should learn from China. Engagement did. And yet today, we plan to isolate while we are living off global systems. We are saying this with our mouth, and most of us are running to foreign nations every day while our people are suffering. We go to these nations, we don't even want to return. We say we don't need the wall, but we run to the wall for refuge. We run to them for education. We run to them for medicine. We run to them for markets. Contradiction. That is not resistance. That is denial. We walk around as victims When you see opportunity, you say danger. When you see order, you say oppression. There is a learned scholar who shared a very interesting story about the dilemma of Africa. And he paints a very vivid picture of a plane and a pilot. And then some villagers, about 400 in numbers, got into that plane. The first thing they did was kill that pilot. After they killed that pilot, and then they asked themselves, who will fly us to our destination? None of them could fly a plane. That is the dilemma of Africa. We said we wanted independence. We don't want gradual change. Just let the colonial master go, and we will fly this plane. And when the colonial master left, we could not fly the plane. Instead of accepting that we cannot fly the plane, we look for more stories, excuses to make. That is the story of Africa. I said Pobia, for example, comes from a village that they've never led any group of people more than 2 million people. Their chiefs have never led a group more than 2 million. And they are trying to lead 30 million people. They will be corrupt unintentionally, and you might label them evil people, but it is incompetence. That is why you see I'm focused on institutions and not president. First, for those who don't know, I'm a descendant of the royal family in Mancon. Not just an ordinary Mancon man. I'm a descendant of the royal family in Mancon. And Bamenda City is what it is today because of the leadership of Onangwafo. Do you understand? You might not like everything he did, but Bamenda is what it is today because of his leadership and the cooperation of every other tribe. But Bamenda City has made us not to see ourselves differently. And today I'm getting to understand through my research of our Tikar story that we are all one. Almost all of us in the Northwest, we are all one, descendants of one people, Tikar. Fonangwafo helped to build Bamenda. After they came out of the Fumban and they realized everything was a fiasco, they didn't understand documentation, so they assumed they got into a union, and he's like, oh, we don't have to stir up trouble. At least we have Bamenda. Bamenda has brought every tribe of the Northwest together in a way that you can't imagine. We don't see ourselves different, regardless of where you come from around the Northwest. And that is amazing all by itself. That is a powerful tool for nation building, helping people come together and understand that they are all one. And that is something we can take from the past and lay a solid foundation moving forward. So those who think, oh, I look at the Southwest a certain way. No, I just share that not to brag. I didn't want to put that on you, letting you know, oh, I'm a descendant of the royal family of Mancon. No, I want you to accept my ideas for who I am, not because of who I am. Do you understand? And if that happened, it's a classic indication that I was not raised to see people differently as you think. So when you're talking about me looking at the people of the Southwest a certain way, we were not raised that way. What I learned from Fonangwafo and the family that I was raised in is to embrace strangers. We grew up even in a compound where we have people from different villages come rent. to go learn a trade, start a business. We never looked at people differently because of where they come from. And that is the same spirit I bring into what I'm doing here. I might clarify people's confusion, but that doesn't make me an angry person.
This is there no way.
So many of these countries around the world are incapable of governing themselves. Then it's time for us to just put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security.
You've heard that? They are tired of our people invading their countries, running to them for jobs, for security, filing asylum. They are tired of that. And they say they will put on the imperial hat, come back, and lead those countries. And I tell you, given the struggles most are going through, there are some countries, if Europeans tell me today that they want to go back and lead those countries, I will be one of the first to vote. Because I see incompetence at the level of ignorance that some of your presidents in Africa have. I will say, no, you're putting the lives of millions at risk. You are not competent to lead. And with those guns and those armies, you will not do anything but oppress these people, and they will die for nothing. So you really need help. Do you understand? So that is why we should take what I'm saying here serious, lead ourselves. If not tomorrow, that will be the future for Africa. And the reason will be justified. And your people are a classic proof. They say it. Bad government, bad government, bad government, corrupt government everywhere. Mismanagement of resources everywhere. Your own people say it. So if we want to lead ourselves, let's take what I'm saying here serious. I've talked about the Southern Cameroons civic authority framework. That is step one. Before anything would have been circulating in the community, that would have been the foundation to guide people. Look at our community, all in chaos. Now, these are the similarities, all the three groups, that is the different types of Southern Cameroonians have in common, and then we'll look at the differences. When we are talking about the three different types of Southern Cameroonians, again, I make this distinction so we can save time. But these are similarities. We'll look at our similarities and then we'll look at the differences. It's very important. I said the confusion can come between black and black, not between black and white. You can confuse a Southern Cameroonian by learned acceptance from an Ambazonia or from an authentic Southern Cameroonian. But the distinction between a Southern Cameroonian and someone from La République du Cameroon is wide. So you have to distinguish. It's like black and blue-black. That is how it looks. Now, these are the similarities. We recognize the historical injustice done to us collectively as Southern Cameroonians. We are reacting to the same centralized authority, the same centralized system, the Biya regime and whatever they have been doing to us. We all recognize that. That is a similarity. We want dignity, security, and a future for our people. This is what all Southern Cameroonians have in common. We depend, knowingly or not, on external pressure to shift reality. So you see, we are depending on international community. So that means we Africans, we Southern Cameroonians, and Southern Cameroonians can't solve our problems, can't be honest. So we depend on the same colonial master to come help us, or foreign communities to come help us. Now, these are the differences, which is very, very important. This is where the blue-black and the black distinction is very, very important. So number one, Southern Cameroonians, by legal continuity or by legitimacy, or authentic Southern Cameroonians, this is their core belief. Southern Cameroons never completed decolonization in law. This issue is unresolved trusteeship and international status, not cessation. Primary goal, legal clarity. That is number one. And then determine political outcome. That is the next step. Main arena, international law, UN processes, treaties, archives, diplomatic pressure. So this is our view on Cameroon. An occupying administrator in legal limbo, not a legitimate union partner unless proof is produced. These are strength, precision, legitimacy, long-term durability. Hard to defeat once clarified. This is our strength. This is the weakness with our process. Slow, requires discipline. So if you're not disciplined, you can't be on this track. Funding, you have to finance it, and patience. Another weakness is we are not emotional, and we are not here to satisfy the pain of people in this process. Number two is Ambazonia. This is the distinction. Ambazonia assumes union, and so they are labeled secession. That's why you see Ayok, Sesekutabe, and the Naira 10. They are accused of secession because they said a union existed. That's Ambazonia's story. And so La Republic changed the name, and that all by itself is secession from the union, and so they assumed their status. That is the logical understanding of things based on Ambazonia. So their core belief, Southern Cameroons joined Cameroons and was betrayed. If you ask the average Ambazonian, how did we join? They will say through a plebiscite in 1961. That is a very limiting way of describing the story of Southern Cameroons. Ask them. The average Ambazonian will tell you we joined through a plebiscite in 1961 and through Fumban Conference. They don't even know the meaning of Fumban Conference. That's why you see the community has been talking about Fumban. They betrayed us at Fumban because people don't understand the purpose of Fumban. So the solution is separation from a failed union. That is Ambazonia's narrative. The primary goal is independence through resistance, pressure, or negotiation with La République du Cameroun. That's why you see most Ambazonians are supporting Issa Juruma Bakari, because they believe that if he gets to power, they can negotiate their freedom. We don't know where that has ever happened before in the world, but somehow they believe that is a good path to take. And again, based on the authentic story of Southern Cameroons, La République du Cameroun is not the jurisdiction. So if La République du Cameroun is not the jurisdiction, then no president from La République du Cameroun can negotiate the freedom of Southern Cameroons. It's illegal. Know your story, know your rights. The main arena is mobilization, symbolism, flags, protest, armed struggle, international advocacy. You go to foreign embassies and let them know Ambazonians are being marginalized in Southern Cameroons. So this is their view of Cameroon. A failed or oppressive state that must be exited. So this is a failed state. That is why you see they use even economic sabotage to bring down La République du Cameroun. They have to exit. So they show their people, this thing has failed, let's go. Their strength is energy, visibility, and emotional clarity on what they are going through in Southern Cameroons. So the whole goal is to force international attention and urgency. This is their weakness. The legal foundation is assumed, not proven. Has La Republic ever shown you an Ambazonia, a union treaty? Do you have one? If they say the exchange of notes is a union treaty, that means they know a union treaty was required. And if they are treating the exchange of notes as a union treaty, and then we will look into that exchange of notes to find out if that is really a union treaty. And if that is not a union treaty, then we want the missing union treaty. Because that exchange of notes is UK informing the UN that their trusteeship era is coming to an end. Do you understand? These are some of the weaknesses of Ambazonia. So the legal foundation is assumed, not proven. They are vulnerable to being framed as a rebellion or internal conflict. But you must be framed that way if you assume a union exists. And make this distinction between blue, black, and black, so that you don't confuse Ambazonia, Cameroonians by learned acceptance, and authentic Southern Cameroonians. So this is what Cameroonians by learned acceptance believe. Their core belief is Cameroon exists as a fact. Change must happen inside it. Stability and personal advancement are practical necessities for a Cameroonian by learned acceptance. And the reason why they are treated better in Cameroon is because of this diaspora agitation or the fighters on the ground, the freedom fighters. That is what makes the Cameroonian by learned acceptance relevant in Cameroon, including Atanganji Po and the rest. By the time we are clear with all of this, these people will have no use of them anymore. And they should know that. So their primary goal, influence, reform, or survival within the centralized state. That is a Cameroonian by learned acceptance. Their main arena, political parties. That's why you see they have the SDF. Right? The Munas created a political party. So political parties, civil service, some of them will work for the government, thinking that will create, some even said, Fonja worked there, so it means the union was legal. You're like, really, brother? Is that law? Is that law? Oh, it has been 65 years, we cannot change things now. Ah, really? You think so? Study, my brother. Civil service, activism tolerated by the state. The state says, go out and march, and they get their permits. That is the only time they get to take action. So this is their view on Cameroon. A difficult but permanent reality. It's difficult. It's permanent. But we are part of this country. Let's follow the law. Let's respect the country. That is their view. So their strength is access, visibility, short-term protection. Access. You can see them on major media outlets in the country. They can speak. They can be interviewed. They can be on CRTV. Visibility, you see them on these platforms. Short-term protection until they lock you up. You have to run away from the country, or you lose your life in the process, or become a mediator between the government and other Southern Cameroonians who are deemed as cessationists. Can speak where others cannot. You can see them going into courts. They can speak in courts, become journalists, become prime ministers or ministers. So this is the weakness. no structural power. That's why you see their goal is to make sure that they get to the level of president, because no matter how high they've climbed the ladder, they still realize they are limited to bring about change. And again, we come from a culture where this power struggle thing is not a thing. They would betray one another even in the process without knowing, because that is how that system was created to be. And they are going through this. But you step back and then you see them in their own frame, because you can zoom out and see what is really happening. Progress depends entirely on favor from the center. Chef d'etat. What Paul Biya says is what matters in a centralized state. Talking with Paul Biya is the biggest dream of these people. That's why you see people rally on social media. They talk about, Ngongo had access to Paul Biya. This had access. Does Atanganjipo has access to Paul Biya? You know why we say things like this? Because that is how that centralized state is designed to function. See a king begging as a slave in a house that they don't belong in. So, easily neutralized once pressure drops. They discard them, ignore them once the pressure from the diaspora, the Ambazonia, or now the Cameroonians, by legitimacy, when we drop pressure, these people become irrelevant. So you should understand what they are using you for. And this goes in for celebrities. All our celebrities are Cameroonians by learned acceptance. And you should understand how this works. We are not blaming anybody, but we're just helping you understand where you are mentally and the shift you can make. So if we don't adjust ourselves right now, look at the legal foundation. Our people will continue to complain, cry, hope that change comes in this country, and it will never come. Someday, the Europeans will return. They will return to lead us again. And if people reject knowledge, I will be one of the few black people that will vote, that go help, so that that old woman in the village will have water. Because this black man will have pride and ego, and his people will perish. I'll be one of the first black man to vote that I agree, so that those children back there can go to school. You leave your own country, come over here, and still go subject yourself and serve in their companies. So there's no difference. So you just have either pride because you see knowledge, still no. So what do you want? What is your problem? You just want your people to suffer while you hold on to an idea that you got freedom, when you can't use that freedom for the betterment of your people? Doesn't add up. Do you know the thousands of people that have died and we've not had clarity even on our status until now? That I'm bringing about clarity sequentially, that just use the name Southern Cameroons. This is the clarity I brought for us. Southern Cameroons are legal name, recognized by more than 87 countries. Instant recognition that were present when the resolution 1608 was being adopted on April 21st, 1961. More than 87 countries were present. Southern Cameroons, nothing else, just that name. Have helped us to understand our status is incomplete independence, incomplete decolonization, because of the plebiscite question. Do you choose to gain independence by joining? I have distinguished between Northern Cameroons and Southern Cameroons, how the process looked like for these two entities. Under Article 102 of the United Nations Charter, we ought to have a tripartite conference where we would have signed, ratified, and registered a union treaty at the United Nations under 102 of the United Nations Charter. And that never happened. And our people have been confused to think Fumban Constitutional Conference was a Fumban Treaty Conference. And we assume Fumban created a union. A constitution is adopted after a treaty. So before Fumban Constitutional Conference, we ought to have a treaty signed, ratified, and registered at the UN before Fumban. Do you understand that all the changes made from 1972, 1984, La Republic used their internal laws to make those changes? I've brought about clarity on that sequentially. The fact they are saying the exchange of notes is a union treaty, then they know that a union treaty was required. And so we'll look into the authentic union treaty and ask, can you provide that for us? The burden of proof is on La Republic of Cameroon, not us anymore. They will prove when the time comes. This is the work that I have done. I've come up with the Southern Cameroons Civic Authority Framework to guide our population so that we can limit civilian casualty while setting ourselves up for a first world country. While we sort out this legal confusion, there is a jurisdictional question here, sir. We will sort that out. La Republic will explain, only that government, not you. Whether you were born and raised among us as a Southern Cameroonian, not you. La Republic will answer for themselves. Don't worry. That is what I've done. And then I've said between 5 years, that is 2 to 5 years, if we put in work, not that between 2 to 5 years, people fold their arms, sit in their own corner, they are not engaged, the language is still confused, people don't know what to do for the next 2 to 5 years. That means work starts now. The work starts now. In the next 2 to 5 years, if we put in the work, we will have this problem resolved. If not, nothing will change. I have outlined how long it will take us. That is 2 to 5 years. And the experts required to put together a UN-backed petition that La Republic will be summoned to provide or prove how this union was created at the UN and how much it will cost, between $700 to $1 million, to have these individuals go to work, hire them and pay them to work. And what will happen in the next 2 to 5 years? If this is not done, the work is not done, nothing will change. If we don't adopt this Southern Cameroon Civic Authority Framework, confusion continues, more people lose their lives, we remain in the same condition. If we are not actively sharing this video, engaging with this video, encouraging others to change their minds, have Southern Cameroons our authentic legal name. Just the legal clarity. If Southern Cameroons had to hire a lawyer to bring about this depth of clarity, 300 hours of legal studies, it won't cost us less than $150,000. And I've done that work for us. Now let's put in some effort and push through to the end. Whether you are a Cameroonian by learn acceptance, whether you are an Ambazonia, this is time for you to become a real Southern Cameroonian that you are. You can't climb that ladder and become the next king in La Republic of Cameroon. You can't entertain yourself in English and French and become the next king in La Republic of Cameroon. We are amazing people, and there is a bright future ahead of us. Let's not let this opportunity pass us by, and we get to tell a story that someday a European came back to rule us.